All continue to face the menace of an aggressive, expansionist and revisionist Russia seeking to subjugate Ukraine and harass NATO.
We will keep the pressure up on Russia.
A clear threat to the security of the European continent.
There has been a terrifically intense focus on the extent to which Europe would be capable of deterring a Russian attack on our own. There are those who argue that Russia has, for the best part of a millennium, been intrinsically expansionist imperial power that acquires neighboring territories for the sake of it, and that Putin is trying to restore something like the old Russian Empire or the Soviet Union. It's important to take a slightly more nuanced view, to look at what Putin and his representatives have actually said. And the most striking comments came when Russia and the US were negotiating over trying to avert Russia's military buildup around Ukraine before the full-scale invasion a few months later. And the Russians demanded that NATO withdraw all of its forces in Europe behind the line that had previously marked the alliance's border in 1997. I think we can assume that if Putin has an overarching strategic objective, it is not to, for example, occupy Estonia because he wants Estonia. It is to humiliate, to weaken, to fragment, or to drive back NATO in Europe. Most of Northern Europe's intelligence agencies and security services have concluded that between 1 and 5 years of some kind of ceasefire in Ukraine, Russia would be capable of regenerating enough combat power to be in a position to wage a full-out war of aggression against European NATO. And that is the timeline on which certainly Northern and Central Europe's militaries are preparing to have to defend the alliance. Those plans extend from secret regional defense plans within NATO, where one very large component is the fact that NATO would bombard Russian military targets on Russian soil very heavily with artillery and long-range precision strikes. But at the other end of the spectrum, the absolute centrality of having to keep this machine ticking over that brings allied forces and military equipment and supplies to the front line. Finland is a fascinating case study because during the Second World War, it was invaded by the Soviet Union. It ended up losing that war, but defending itself so valiantly against overwhelming odds. After the Second World War, they built up this extremely deep culture of preparedness in which something like 1/5 of the population has received military training. The Finnish armed forces themselves are relatively small, but they can call up more than 300,000 reservists at short notice and mobilize anything up to 900,000 people. They've maintained some of the largest stocks of artillery, for example, that are left in Europe. They also have a strong culture of civilian readiness, and they have also built enough bomb shelters underneath their buildings to be able to provide refuges for the entire population in the event of missile bombardment. We can say with quite a strong degree of precision how willing each individual European population is to take up arms in defence of their country or in defence of a NATO ally. The frontline countries, in particular in Finland, it often exceeds 80% of the entire population. But the further away that you move from the front line, and in particular the further that you move to the south, that drops away. So even in Poland, which does share a border with Russia, it is significantly lower. And then when you move to Germany, it declines to below 30%. And I was very struck when I went to go and speak about my book called Baltic, the Future of Europe, which looks at the danger that Russia could launch an invasion. And I asked how many of these 120 students would be prepared to fight for their own country. And it was about 8 or 9 of them, which I think really tells you something about not just the extent to which people don't understand what is at stake here, but also the sense in which a lot of young people in Europe feel that the social contract is fundamentally broken and don't see why they should be expected to fight to defend something that they feel has not delivered for them. Mark Rutte, the Secretary General of NATO, made a speech in the European Parliament, and he told them,
And if anyone thinks here, again, that the European Union or Europe as a whole can defend itself without the US, keep on dreaming. you can't.
The general conclusion is that he is right. As of today, the Europeans would find it incredibly difficult to persuade Russia that they would be in a position to win a defensive war without the USA. That said, there are those with centuries of experience of being attacked by Russia, where they have been preparing for this, where they have developed militaries, but also civilian structures that are very strongly adapted. And I believe if the Western Europeans are willing to look at these countries and learn from them, then it is not inconceivable that within a matter of years, Europe as a whole could be in a position to defend itself.